Alright, recording the video again for the third time since people in my house decided to just start screaming. Okay, so basically, I want to start off by talking about these things and that people in my player group were going to a teams event this weekend on my team, and we're struggling to, how do I deal with this army, what do I take, what list do I make, this isn't good enough, this isn't good, blah blah blah. Do I just keep playing the same thing I've been playing? And what do I do against this army? There's like, a lot of the people that talk to me specifically, I give them just play this. Everything's fine. But when you start talking to other people that aren't me, especially on like Discord communities or whatever, they're gonna be very adamant about, no, you're screwed. Like this army's gonna beat you. Like what are you gonna do about this? You don't have an answer to this. And a lot of those people don't even play your faction. They don't even play your army. They have literally no clue what Space Marines, for example, even do and how they operate. Half of the time, they don't even know like the profiles or anything besides, oh, it's 3 up save Space Marine, 3s to hit, and it hits hard. They don't know how many weapons you can take, what's the options, right? They only know what they're kind of facing into, so they're used to getting, if they're versing Black Templar, like, oh, Sword Brothers hit really hard, Hellbrick kills you, right? Necron, Silent King is a big model, kill it, and all this stuff. Demons, like, Be'lakor, ooh, he's a named character, probably want to kill him. I hear his name around on YouTube a lot. But they don't actually know what any of these things do. So, what I recommend is that you probably know more about your army than the person you're talking to, okay? Number one. Unless they play it a lot, etc., right? Then it's useful information, and so on. But if someone is just being like very scared or telling you you don't have answers to this problem, in your mind you kind of feel like you do, right? I would definitely be like, hey, maybe I should need to stop listening to other people and either listen to, me, the coach, listen to yourself, listen to your practice more than what others have to say about it. Unless you value their opinions very highly, like if they're a pro player, they're your coach, like me, or just a good player that you know, right? You might want to take their advice, but everybody else, or if you know that they just don't play your armies, just don't bother listening to them, and let the results do the talking, and then be like, okay, I was wrong, he was right. I'm gonna adjust this and get a few people's opinion. I always like to get a third person, fourth person's opinion rather than just listening to one person. So the first thing I want to talk about is how did this problem come about? Top tier armies, okay, and expectations at events. Now I'm going to start off by talking about the expectations first because this is something less to talk about and it's important, I guess. Number one, when you're going to an event, if you're not playing the top like 3 to 6 armies in the game, okay, the top 3 to 6 armies in the game, if you're not playing those armies, do not even consider yourself to be a person who is going to win the event. It is highly unlikely, okay, unless you're a well-known player, professional player, or even working your ass off and your entire goal is to go to the event and win it, and you have ideas of how you're going to play into the top armies. You've played them before. You've done the practice, the reps, and everything is going smoothly. Then you're like, I have a really good chance of actually winning this, and I think I can do it. Then you can go into it with the expectations of, I can win this event, and I'm going to try to win the event. But besides that, I think everybody's expectations should be, I'm going to a 5-round event. I've been doing the practice, or I've been like, my list is not that bad. It's pretty solid, I think. Has a lot of play in it, and I should go 4-1. That is what everybody should be aiming for. Especially if you've been getting coached by me for like a couple months, 4-1 is a realistic expectation of any of you guys that have been getting coached by me for a while, right? And a lot of you guys do go 4-1 with the like off chance of going 3-2. Now, when you go 3-2 at an event, you have to understand that, number one, was my expectation of going 4-1 like insanity, or was the reason I went 3-2 is because I actually got to worse a top tier player in like twice basically. Did I get to worse a top tier player round 1 where I lost, then I climbed back up into the finals, and then I basically lost my last game against another really good player who kind of just fell down against a really bad matchup or got blown out a game, and then I had to fight him. Or I played against a really good player, then I played against a complete counter. For example, if I'm taking Tau to like a big event or a GT, and all of a sudden I have to verse 2 Ynnari players back to back, okay? There's almost nothing I can do if the Ynnari player just plays it perfectly or plays it well enough. A pure shooting army like Tau doesn't have that many options to beat Ynnari, because Ynnari scores 100 points every game. It's very difficult to play into them as a pure shooting army, and even if I did tech for that matchup specifically with some different units, it would still be an uphill battle and I could lose, right? So getting paired into complete counter, we just can't win the game. Like if you're playing world leaders and you go up against an army with all -1 damage all over the board, you just can't kill them. Not much you can do. Okay, or extremely bad mission, you could lose. So really want to think about, why did you lose that game? How did you lose it? What can you learn from it? That's the most important part. And then you can be like, okay, I went 3-2, respectful. Okay, I can go 3-2 and I can lose to a professional player. That's fine. A lot of people locally, when you go to my local events, if you play against like me, my brother, and my friend, who are like the top 3 in my city, you shouldn't be going to that event thinking, I'm going to go undefeated. Okay, to go undefeated in our leagues, you have to beat me, my buddy who went to Worlds, and then my brother who plays against me often. So it's going to be an uphill battle. You kind of have to go from like a 6 out of 10 player to a 7 out of 10 player to like an 8 out of 10 player. And if you beat all of us back to back to back, good on you, or bad on us, one or the other. And yeah, so that just meant that, you know, you played really well, things went your way, and you won the tournament. But it's unlikely, right? Even for me, when I go to a tournament, my goal is to go 5-0, but if the tournament competition is 8 of Team Canada's members and Scary and then me and my buddy, it's like, well, there's 10 of us competing for the same position, which is first place. It's only one of us is going to get it. It's unrealistic for us to think that we're going to beat the other person every single time. So, especially when they're bringing the top tier armies. So having realistic expectations, but don't settle for something that you know you can achieve. If you know you can achieve a 3-2 record, or that's something that you feel like it's very comfortable, like 75% of the time you will hit 3-2, stop trying to aim for 3-2. Aim higher for something that is doable but challenging at the same time. Something you're not going to achieve every single time, but if you're gunning for it and that's your intent and your mindset is like, I need to do this, and it takes you to the next level in terms of like focus and commitment to your goal, that's what you want to be doing. Okay, so aim for 4-1, and then when you don't hit it, you'll go down to 3-2, but you'll understand why, and you'll be like, I was pretty close, and you do it the next time, right? Okay, so that's expectations. The next thing is these armies, right? It's the top armies in the meta. If you're not playing the top 6 armies in the game, whichever you think they are, or whichever are actually very, very strong, you can look at Orks, Astra Militarum, these 2 armies in the game. No one really wants to play into these armies. In fact, I'd rather play into anything else in this pool than play into these 2 armies. Ignoring Admech, because Admech is like an army I never play into, never lost against it, but I just don't want to go up against an army that I'm just like, oh, what's going on, right? So many models on the board, very skewed, don't want to play into that. But Admech and Orks, basically broken, extremely powerful always, extremely annoying to play into. Don't want to play into these. The next 2 armies, Space Marines, lots of build diversity there, and you know, a Space Marine player typically is generally more well-rounded of a player, has a stronger list because they net list a lot, and have good data sheets. That this can be an army that a lot of people struggle into. Even though it's something that you really shouldn't struggle into, it's just something that you have to play better into. You have to play a better game and abuse like the weaknesses and abuse the fact that, hey, I'm not going to go for this risky play, or I do need to make a riskier play in this particular situation because I am behind, and then the Space Marine player will lose, right? You can't just be like, I'm going to sit back, do nothing into Space Marine, because Space Marine players are actively doing something, usually at all times, if they're a good player. Eldari, a lot of people still don't know what Eldari does. They have a lot of tricks and movement, so 40k is one in the movement phase, basically, so you want to be scared about Eldar. And a lot of people don't actually play into Eldar that much, since it's like a kind of a rarer faction, and usually it's like really, really strong, so people play it a lot. And when it's not very strong, you basically don't see it in the meta at all. So it's extremely strange. Even the Eldar players themselves, unlike Space Marine players who continue to play Space Marines, Eldar players usually only play Eldar when they're like very broken, or they give up on Eldar if it's not like A tier army. If it's like a B plus C minus, B minus C plus army, they kind of just like stop playing Eldar, and they're like, they start trolling, or they start just complaining about things, kind of like Custody players, when Eldar is like a high skill army. And yeah. So basically the top armies in the meta. If you're not playing these armies, you're bound to lose. Warhammer is not a not a well balanced game. It's not going to be, because they don't want to balance it, etc. And they don't want to give us rules. So that's just how it is. So if you're not playing one of the top tier armies, you should never basically go into a tournament thinking you're gonna win. You should also, if you go to a tournament and you do worse one of these armies, you should always think to yourself, I'm at a huge disadvantage, okay, because the opponent has a like 70% win rate army, and the player who's piloting it has probably put in reps with it, probably played more games with it, and practiced with it, because he's playing a meta army, which is with the meta build probably, right? As soon as you recognize these things, these are red flags to go in your head and be like, I should take this game like seriously, number one. But number two, I should not take it so serious that I need to win at all costs, because I'm most likely going to lose. Okay, so when the odds are like I'm gonna lose, you should not exert all of your like energy into trying to win that game, unless it's like the finals or something, right? If you really want to win it, you really can win it. That's fine, but you really should not have the expectations of, I'm worse in guard and I'm gonna beat them. Like, your expectation should be, okay, how can I play well into this? And then if I play good, I should basically come out on top. If I fall short, I'll understand what to do next time. Or their army's just really, really strong, and I could have beat the player, but the army just carried him that little bit more, and I'm not going to win, right? So the odds are against your favor. That's all you need to understand. So don't go into these armies like, I'm going to go on the weekend, if I worse Mordaka, if I worse Astra Militarum meta list, if I worse Eldar's meta like the Yanari list and stuff like this, and I lose against them, I'm not going to be upset, because these armies are just busted, and there's no reason to play any of these bottom armies. There's absolutely next to zero reasons to play these bottom armies, okay? So if you're playing these bottom armies, I'm going to get to my third point about what to do about these armies in a second, but that's what makes these top armies like really, really strong in the meta, and they're always winning events, because they just win like 70+% of their games automatically just by choosing this faction. Okay, it's not the same for like these armies, like Custodes and CSM and down here. It's a little bit different, but if you do pick these, like usually the top 2 to 4 armies, they're like extremely strong. Space Marines is a little weird on that, because most of the people playing this are like high skill caliber players, and your average Joes are like doing well because they're net listing the list, and the list is making them win. And the current list for Space Marines, that I don't think is the best list, is just, they just access to infinite stratagems, which, you know, it's existed since the beginning of 10th edition. I played it at the beginning of 10th edition. It's not something that I needed at all, because if you ask a pro player, do you need 30 command points in a game? The answer is going to be no, right? And if you ask them like, hey, what if you just could use every single stratagem at all time because you had like 4 CP a turn? They'd be like, oh, that's really powerful. It's really good. But they're not going to say, I need this to win, because Space Marines, for all of 10th edition, except for like the very beginning basically, they haven't needed infinite command points. And something to consider is the Space Marine player in the current list that people don't think about is they're spending 600 points, if not even more points, generating those command points, generating those super elite units. That's going to take us to the next point, basically, is we go back to this and, right, meta list and lots of hidden potential, etc. So, net listing is good in its own right, but it's also absolute garbage, okay? So, we don't want to net list because we can't, and this is the next thing. So, what happens when the meta is not our faction and there's nothing to copy and paste? What do we do, right? And what if we're playing one of these B tier, low A tier, C tier factions, basically? By the way, this tier list is not S tier, A tier, B tier. This is just a Art of War tier list that is based off of meta armies. That's why it says, like, this is super high in the meta, comparatively speaking, what's doing well in events. This is the next one that's doing like well in events. Not what is the strongest army in the game according to Art of War, because Votan would not be up here. It would be like down here, and some of these other armies would be like higher up that are stronger. Relatively, it's pretty much okay though. So what are you gonna do, right? And this was a big question that I started off with was, if I'm playing Templars, you know, what are the weaknesses? What do I need to adjust for, etc. Well, there's no lists out there right now for, let's say, Tau, right? Not as many lists. One thing you have to consider is what was really good in previous metas, okay? And we're going to look at, you could run triple Riptides, you could run Breacher Spam, which basically doesn't exist in the current metagame. You haven't seen Breacher Spam since Siegler took it to Worlds, and nobody else copied his list because people don't like playing Breacher Spam. And it wasn't even that spammy, but there was a lot of breachers in it. People also don't like playing with a lot of infantry. They don't understand how to use transports, and people lose games a lot more when they don't have durable units. That's the key thing, okay? So the more durable your army list is, the more models you have, the better you're going to do automatically. That's something in Warhammer that you just need to understand, that if you just have more units and more models, you're automatically going to do better. Because unless your opponent kills 20, 30 units, you're not out of the game. You can still move a unit, score points. You can still hold primary. You can still move block. You still have units to play the game with. But if you bring 3 Riptides and those 3 Riptides die and you lose 600 points to your army, when you could have lost like 380 point units, you're going to be like, well, I don't have any guns left, and I have a crisis suit unit, which is another like 220 points. I'm kind of out of the game. So I'm going to just concede. That doesn't happen when you bring a lot of units, which is breachers and devilfishes. They got to kill the devilfish and the breachers and the character, etc. So that's one list. The other list was like the big 300 point airplane that Tiger Shark can take. People have stopped taking it. Aircraft is still extremely strong. People just stop taking it because there's nobody to copy. And if you do look at the Tau, like the Pure Tide program guy in Europe, he makes some content. Siegler makes some content, right? And people do invest their time and copy those guys' lists. But Siegler doesn't go to that many events, so you're not even getting the best list that he's taking. And when he does go to Worlds, he doesn't just play different builds. He's bringing like breachers and better builds. Like currently he's playing on the RTT. He's bringing a completely different build than what he does on stream. So watching their stream games, they are testing stuff and they are playing different variety of things for their teammates, for the stream. It's not just what is the best. Art of War has stopped doing that. Necrons is another one, right? Up and down Necrons was very, very popular. People have stopped playing it. The list did not change that much besides 3-inch deep strike went to 6-inch deep strike. You were never 3-inch deep striking really anyways. You were teleporting far away and shooting people off the board. People have just dropped that and they're on to the next meta thing, right? So this is a trend in Warhammer. It's just like an army list was super strong. The perfect example for this is orks. The Grotma's detachment was like S tier. In fact, it was like, we need to nerf this. This is kind of broken. And then more DACA came out randomly like a month later, and that detachment was like basically, you know, the next thing was like, oh, this is so broken, like blah blah blah. And basically, like, if more DACA gets nerfed, the detachment, then they're just gonna go back to playing the older one, which is already basically borderline. You know, people are already calling it broken or too strong, whatever. And then what about Warhorde? Warhorde never got changed. In fact, it got buffed 2 times in a row. The push the big red button one got buffed 2 times in a row. And orks overall got buffed like multiple times in a row. But people just stopped playing those detachments for no reason. Speed Freaks literally went out and won like 2 events back to back before Worlds. And people never played it. People just went, oh, look, Speed Freaks won 2 events. That's interesting. And then the pilot who played Speed Freaks probably got bored of it or didn't want to play it anymore. So like no one just copied and pasted him. They just like couldn't make it work because they're just a bad player, or they just didn't want to play it in the first place, right? Because not a lot of Speed Freaks are cool, but not a lot of people want to play them. This is again with Votann, right? You guys saw my interview. I was playing 15 bikes, lots of Sagittars, but also playing Terminators in the same list as well. People still haven't played that list, except for me, and people still haven't, like, currently in the metagame, people are like, ooh, bikes, like, let's run 15 bikes, let's run 15 bikes. You don't see triple hecatons anymore. You don't see people talking about hecatons. You see people bringing like 1 hecaton, maybe 0, maybe 2 sometimes, because they're more on the casual side. Triple hecaton build is still there. It's slightly worse, but it's still there, especially if you're playing GW, especially if you're playing teams. Double hecaton list is there. The 15 bike list was there since day 1. 18 bikes, 6 bikes, whatever. But the bikes were there since day 1. Nobody was taking them. All of a sudden now, because the top Votann players started taking them because of the Eldari meta game. Not just that, but other reasons. And they're testing it more now. People have started taking it. It could not even be the best thing. Hecatons could be better. But for example, bikes are the best thing. And people are finally taking it 2 years later. Right? So this is what I mean. The Deathwatch community still is playing the same goddamn detachment, and they're still playing the same units as from not LVO, LVO, right? LVO, still playing the same list. Like, there's no way you're still playing the same list. It's not set and done in stone. In fact, the person who took that list, I've said it multiple times, his list was not the best list. Even Art of War didn't 100% like his list. They wanted more Terminators, right? You don't need to run the same kill teams that he ran. He purposely ran full aggro and ran like kind of RNG his way into winning it because he got extremely lucky on a few charges, rolling 11 on the charge, and he got, you know, some lucky pairings or whatever it was on the way there, right? You always need luck to win at some point, or you're just that good, which you can be if you're Art of War or something. Put a lot of practice into it, but yeah, this is what I mean. So Necrons, like, I'm playing Silent King plus 3 Canoptic Doomstalkers with full rerolls, with Overwatch, with ignoring modifiers. Extremely powerful into like melee armies that are in the game right now. Extremely powerful into like 3-4 wound bodies, just one-shotting them off the board. People aren't doing it. Right? Templars, Horde, Templars, people have stopped playing. It was never that like amazing to start with. It was very annoying for some armies, but Horde armies are always very annoying because no one's ever prepared for them until you are, or you meet Votann with Terminators and they just shoot like 200 shots into you and you die. Or you verse out Desolation Marines and they pick you up. So that's what I mean. That's the main thing I want to talk about is these different armies that are in the like middle of the pack here that we usually play. There's a lot of list diversity in there, and you can 100% build a list. For example, the best list in the game is Space Marines or Daka Orks or Astra Militarum. Space Marines are one of the armies in the game that have access to so many data sheets, so many detachments that you can 100% build a counter to a certain army. And you can have a 100% win rate into Daka Orks. Let's say I play 20 games into Daka Orks. I can build a list that has a 100% win rate into Daka Orks. I can build a 100% win rate into Elves, into pure melee armies, right? That doesn't mean I'm going to be able to beat Orks, Astra Militarum, Eldari, Custodes, and these 100% of the time. But that does mean I'm going to be 100% of the time beating this faction, which is the top faction. Right? If I want to beat Genestealer Cult or Grey Knights, I can take 15 Infiltrators and just counter them completely. If I want to beat Eldari, I can bring 2 Desolation Marines and just indirect, 4 units a turn very easily. And I'm not doing that, but I can. Or -1 damage for like World Eaters or Blood Angels, and just stand there and be like, hey, I fight first, I have -1 damage. You brought pure melee, I'm going to stand on these objectives and you cannot charge me because you charge here, I fight first, I'll kill you. You charge on my other squad, I have -1 damage, that reduces your damage by half into my 3 wound bodies with 4 up invulns. You're not getting through me. And Blood Angels just have no chance at that point. You just get hard countered. So that's what I want to talk about is go to your lists, go to your armies, and think about, hey, what was working before? Did it get nerfed significantly? If it didn't, go play that, okay? If it did get nerfed significantly, how did it get nerfed? How can I adjust? Or if you have an army that has a lot of different styles of play, think about what is good into the meta, what is good into your meta more specifically, and build towards that, and you'll have a better experience and a better time, especially when the meta game is like really, really strong, like Daka Orks, Astra Militarum. Let's just put Space Marines Eldari in there. You need some actual power or some actual counters for these matchups, and the meta game is always weird because this is what's currently strong at the moment. Okay, and they're strong in this particular case. But if you bring an unorthodox list like full spam horde, okay, an army like Blood Angels might not be able to get through you in time. An army like Astra Militarum, if you just bring like 15 tanks, they might not be able to kill you because they just don't have enough bodies. If you bring super mass indirect, an army like Eldari is not going to be able to touch you because they're going to be dead before they can get to play the game. If you bring aircrafts as well. And this is what I mean. You can bring a list that is, out of nowhere, or an older list that might not be the best in their current metagame, but the metagame has thought to themselves that, hey, if I worse a Tau player, they're not bringing aircrafts. And then they go up against a Tau player and you're bringing aircrafts, they're not prepared for it because they thought that, hey, I don't need to worry about this. And most of the lists in the game that people like to tailor or build or copy are one-dimensional, okay? They do like one thing, or they're very good at like hyper shooting or hyper durability or moving all over the map. There's not a lot of lists that are extremely well-rounded all-comers lists and are just built perfectly, and it's up to the pilot to make every single toolbox work, every single tool in the toolbox work. So that's the main thing. You really want to consider, are you bringing your toolbox to your army? If you are, then you got to be an exceptionally well-tailored list for the meta, for the army's going to face, for the problems that you are going to, deal with. And if you are bringing a sub-tier faction or something that's solid like Necrons, Death Guards, Sisters, Tau, you want to think, okay, well, what can I build that I know what it's good into, how I know how to play it, and it's bringing a lot of weird units that people aren't used to. They're not going to be prepared for it, and I'm going to get a lot of wins because of it. Like, I can just go into the tournament, I can go, I'm going to beat 3 of these top armies automatically. Let's say all the shooting armies, Daka Orks, Astra Militarum, and Aldari. Okay, these three armies I'm gonna beat really easily, and then Space Marines is gonna be a tougher time because they have Gilliman and some combat and mixed stuff, and Votan's gonna be a tougher time because they have mixed stuff, and Death Watch is gonna be a little bit of a tougher time because they're teleporting. But my plan is to beat these guys in shooting, deal with the armies that are mixed style of play by just being better, and then the melee armies, I'm gonna beat them by just move blocking and shooting them, and that's how you beat melee armies. Very simple. And I'll have extra screens for that. Okay. So that's pretty much the video. Hopefully it was useful to you guys to just hear me talk about this stuff, and to go into consideration about I'm going to continue playing Anvil Siege Force because no one's been ready for it. No one's used to sustain Crit 5 Desolation Marines with AP 1 Ignore Cover. No one is used to playing fixed secondaries, so I'm going to show up to the table with a list that they're like, this list has no damage, but when you put up 40 on the secondary score and you're holding down primary and you score a 90 every single game, it doesn't matter what your opponent brought or didn't bring. And when you start bringing things like ignore modifiers, Dark Angels go down, right? Like Armor Contempt becomes useless. You start bringing armies that have ignore cover, Ballistic Dreadnoughts with 2-up save cover. Cover doesn't exist. Armor Contempt might not exist. AP4, AP5 goes straight through like Hammerheads, big guns. You start bringing indirect, all this stuff. You can really build lists that really deal with a good amount of the armies, and you can bring lists that people just don't understand what you're going to do with it, and you can just win games. It is a best of one format, so you just need to win your best of ones. Okay, your opponent's not going to have a second chance to play against you, definitely not going to have a third chance to play against you. So if you can just kind of edge out that win in the first time that you play against your opponent with the list that they have to sit there and spend time and think about. They might clock out. They might make a wrong move, and you'll be very comfortable. That's what you want to do. And going to these events, you do want to be comfortable with your list. So play what you're used to. You'll be happier with it. And when you're preparing for it, or you're lost in what to take, go back and think about either counter the meta or think about good lists that don't exist in the meta anymore, and bring them back into the meta and do well with them. Alright, thanks.